Hi, it's Megan from Sew and Tell Australia, working with Brindille and Twig to bring you their number 85 pattern, the harem romper. I love this pattern. It's such an easy, simple one to put together. It's great for any baby shower gifts or newborn gifts, or just as part of your kids' capsule, you know, a winter or summer capsule. It's great because it's a baggy fit, so you can fit under something like the lap neck tee or even the raglan tee. They work really well under this. Because it is baggy, you can size down if you want a slimmer fit, but I prefer the baggy look because I think it's really cute. This one's a size 0 to 3 months. I love the fabric I used on this one. It's from So Unique Australia, and I just love the turtles and the sea life. So some of the things that you'll need to get started, you will need either a serger or a sewing machine. If you're using a sewing machine, because we're using knit fabrics, you will either need to use a specific stitch or a serger, or a zigzag stitch. That's just to help give it the stretch that you need. You will also need a tape measure so that you can measure your model. I've already measured mine and I need a size 2 for my son. You also need to have either scissors or a rotary cutter. I also find that having some snips on hand is really handy for any wayward threads. The two options for finishing off these are either the snap straps, or you can use a tie strap as well. So I'll be using the snap straps, but I'll show you a little bit how to do the tie straps as well. So to finish off the snap strap, you either need metal snaps, plastic snaps, or buttons. You'll also need pins or clips. I prefer using clips when using stretch fabrics just because it doesn't mark the fabric as much. You can also get little tags if you want. I like to put them in all my garments, one, so I know what size it is, and also when I'm gifting things, it gives people an idea about how to wash the fabrics, and for my kids to know where their back is. That's always important. So the fabric I'll be using for these ones, which are going to be for my son, is this cute fabric that I got from Spotlight. It's just got some animals on it. So heading into winter in Australia, I'm going to make him a pair of these, and I'll probably make a Henley tee to go with it as well, which will be really cute. And the cuffs will just be this. So that's all the things we need to get started. So let's go and cut our pattern pieces out. I'm using a projector to cut my pattern pieces today, but it's the same whether you're using a projector or paper pattern pieces. So what you need to do is cut all your paper pattern pieces out, or load up your projector pieces, and then lay your fabric out, cutting everything that it says. I will just note that before I cut my back pieces, you will notice on your pattern pieces 2 marks on the back straps. This is where you need to cut if you're going to be using the tie version. So if you're using the tie version, you need to cut across here. If you're using the snap version, you cut the full piece. I'm using the snap version, so I'll be cutting a full piece. Again, just before I cut my lining pieces, so if you are doing the tie version, make sure you cut the same line on the lining as you did on the main pattern piece, otherwise you cut the full piece out. The last piece you need to cut is your ankle cuffs, so you can either do that in the same fabric as your main fabric, or you can cut it in an accent fabric. I'm choosing to cut mine out of an accent cotton lycra. You can also use a ribbing cuff if you want, but yeah, I'm going to go with the cotton lycra. You should now have all your pattern pieces cut out. You will have a front piece, a back piece. I choose to mark my back pieces with just a little bit of tailor's chalk or something similar, so I know that these are the back pieces, particularly when they're quite similar pieces and you may get a little bit confused. And your front and back lining pieces. Again, my back lining piece, I've just popped a little bit of tailor's chalk so I know that's my back lining piece. And your cuff pieces. A little quick note before we get started with the sewing. You may have noticed in my serger, I have changed my left needle out to a grey. This is a little industry trick that when you're working with knit fabrics, obviously they stretch a little bit and tend to show the stitches. So if you change out your left needle thread to the colour of the fabric you're working with, when those seams stretch, you won't notice the stitches as much. So I've changed mine out to grey and I haven't had to change the other 3 threads. Particularly handy if you're a little bit afraid of changing your serger thread. But yes, that's why I have grey in the left needle, and just a little industry trick for you. Let's get started with sewing this together. First thing we're going to do is lay down one of our pieces. It doesn't matter if it's the front or back, and we're going to lay that right sides up. You're then going to get your back piece or your coordinating lining piece. Now I've already put on some stabilizer, so this is just iron on interfacing, or you can use just an extra piece of fabric, but you're going to lay that right sides together, lining it all up and clip, because we're then going to go and serge all the way along the outside edge of your piece. Once you've done your first one, you repeat it to the other side. Before we move on, I will show you how to do the shoulder ties. Now I'm just doing it in a little bit of mock to give you an idea. So you'll get your 2 front and lining piece or back lining piece. I've just got a little mock piece of front piece that I've cut off. So again, you'll start with your front piece right side up, and you will place your lining piece on top, matching it up. And this time, instead of serging the top of the strap together, you're going to leave it open. So pin the rest of it together, and then I want you to sew along this edge, and this edge, and we're going to leave these top bits open. So you should end up with a piece looking like this. Obviously you will have a longer actual piece. I've just got 2 sample pieces. But what you're now going to do is grab your ties. Now I have just cut a 6" by 1" piece of lycra, but you can also use twill tape or ribbon or shoelaces, whatever you want to use as your ties, but it has to be 6 inches long. And what you're going to do is insert them into your strap, pull it through, and just make sure that it's lying flat, because we are going to serge along the top here, and just pop a clip in it. Once you've done that for both sides, you should, on the inside, have a piece that's just kind of being loose in here. Again, it is really important to make sure that it's flat so you don't get it twisted when you're sewing. But now we're going to serge along the top edge. So now you should have it looking like this, and your ties will be on the inside. Now it's really important if you're using a single-sided fabric, so I've just used a plain grey, but if I was going to use the Fireworks fabric, it's really important to make sure that the print side is laying against the main part of the body, so that when you turn your shoulder straps out, you will have the printed side at the front. So they are our ties. You would repeat that to both front and back, and then you'd have your tie pieces. But for now, we're going to continue on with the snaps. Regardless of whether you've done the shoulder tie or the snap button straps, your pieces should look like this at this stage. We're now going to attach our front and back pieces together. So you get your front piece and your back piece, which I know because of that, and you're going to turn them so that they are right sides together. You are then going to get your two side seams and match them up. I like to pop a little clip in, and then what we're going to do is just clip all the way down the leg and then serge all the way along there. By this stage, your pieces should look like this. So your lining pieces are folded up and stitched along there all the way down to the bottom on both sides. And your inseam has been serged as well. The next step we're going to do is our cuff pieces. You need to take your two cuff pieces that you cut out earlier, fold them right sides together, and you're going to sew along the longest edge on both pieces. You should now have two cuff pieces that look like this. From there, you're going to take your cuff pieces and fold them in so that you have wrong sides facing and they're in half. Take your time to line up all the raw edges. This is going to make it easier when you're attaching it to your leg piece. Once you've got your two folded cuff pieces, take your romper, and while it's still inside out, you're going to take your leg cuff and slip it inside the leg piece. I like to make sure my inseam seam lines up with the seam of my cuff. So I'm going to get that, line them all up, and pop a clip in it. From there, you want to make sure you've got all three raw edges lined up together. So you've got your outer raw edge and then your two leg cuff pieces. I tend to stretch my cuff piece out just so I know that it's gonna fit, and I'll pop a clip on the other side. You can quarter it if that is easier, but on these smaller pieces it's sometimes a little bit tricky to quarter the leg cuff, so I just stretch it out. We're then going to take it over to the serger and we're going to serge all the way around our leg cuff. Once you've done one side, repeat to the other. We're almost done. So this is what it'll look like now. Your garment is inside out, and we are going to now turn it the right way out. When you're turning your front and back pieces, it is a good idea to grab like a chopstick or a knitting needle just to help push those corners out. Here's one I prepared earlier. I'm just going to grab it and push it right into those corners just to make sure that they're all the way out. Gives it a nice crisp edge. Ta-da! From here, you might want to just clip off any little loose threads that you've got. But you're going to take this over to the ironing board or iron and give it a really good press. You want to make sure that your lining pieces are nice and flat. and that will just help just make it sit a bit nicer. So take that to your ironing board, give it a really good press, and the next thing we do is our snaps. If you did the tie version, you're now done, but because we're doing the snap version, we need to include our snaps. I'm going to put 2 snaps per strap for extra security, so I need to make sure I've got 2 male snaps and 2 female snaps. The way you tell the difference is the male snaps have a prong on them or a stud, and the female snaps are a socket, so they're flat. So stud, socket. These are the rings and they're universal. They go on both the male and female version. But you lay your pieces out, fold them over as the back is going to come over the top, and just roughly work out where you want your snaps to go. It's really important to make sure that you put them on right, particularly with metal snaps, as they're very hard to get off. I choose to put mine on with an industrial snap press because it just makes it a little bit easier with metal snaps, but you can also use plastic snaps, handheld one as well. So let's pop all our snaps on. This is our first one done. As you can see, we've got our male snaps. Now I'm just going to do the female and complete the other side. And you're all done. These are your harem rompers all finished now with your snaps done here or your ties. The last thing you can do if you want is to pop a machine stitch just down the side seams just to help stop the lining coming out. So that just makes it a little bit easier if you want to. Otherwise, this is it. Like I said, this pattern is great for layering, so pairing it with something like the raglan tee or the lap tee or even the free ringer tee. That's a good one to pop underneath. I'll probably be making a raglan tee for this one, which I'm looking forward to putting together, and maybe something like a rib knit, which would look good. And like I said, coming into Australian winter, this one's going to be good for that. Hopefully you liked this video and gained some knowledge. The next video I'll be doing is the summer romper, which I can't wait to do because that one's one of my very, very favorite patterns. But as always, like and subscribe to the video so that you get the notifications when we upload the next one. Otherwise, we hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks.